Hi, I'm Leslie,
I'm Stephanie.
and we are the Hand Readers Guild. And we are here today to talk to you about fingerprints, which is a topic we haven't talked about on our videos yet. But
Hmm.
before we do that, we're going to just tell you a little bit about us. We started Hand Readers Guild because we both love reading hands, and especially the fingerprint part, which we're going to talk about today. And we want to share that with the world because it's something we're so passionate about and we
Yep.
love teaching it. So we've been doing these live videos mostly every week. We're not 100% consistent,
Hmm.
and streaming them to our YouTube channel and to either our Facebook group or our Facebook page. We alternate. And we are hoping that if you like them, you will follow us on YouTube and subscribe to our channel. Or you will join our Facebook group, which is right there.
Right there.
Right there. I had to find the right spot to click. And that you will, engage with us, ask questions, let us know if there's something you want to learn that we haven't talked about yet. We're happy to answer any comments you have. So with that, I'm going to let you do the disclaimer, Stephanie, because you did it so well last time.
Yes. Our disclaimer is we are live. We're live. We don't edit. And everything that happens stays in this video. So we have our lovely dogs who mine have decided to curl up and take a nap now. Yay.
Yeah, hopefully mine are a little sleepy too. I think one is snoring.
Oh, nice. So if you hear anything,
Like snoring.
Yep. And I have kids that run through here and yell at me.
Right. So we don't take those out. So you just get to laugh along with us and laugh at us when we go, oops.
Or get out of here. Screaming.
Right. Yeah. Yep. So with that said, we'll get on to talking about our topic for today. And our topic for today, as I said, is fingerprints. And we're going to talk about a specific part of fingerprints. But first, we're going to introduce you to the way we read fingerprints in the Hand Readers Guild. So let's look at fingerprints. So these are the 4 basic fingerprint types. And these are the same types you see used in law enforcement and ID. And these are the 4 basic formations that come up in the skin ridge patterns.
FBI. CIA.
FBI, Scotland Yard.
Scotland Yard.
And there's statistics too on fingerprints. They talk about which fingerprints are more common, how likely they are to show up on a particular finger. If you're a real fingerprint geek, that stuff is out there.
Yep.
We're kind of fingerprint geeks.
Totally. I noticed that one of them, in one of the criminology things I was looking at, some of them don't use the tented arch, which is very interesting.
They just lump both the arches together?
Or a loop or something. It's very weird, but
that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Well, so let's just talk about the 4 types
that we know.
That we know, that we use.
We use
I think most use.
Yeah.
And I think some of them they might give. I've seen the tented arch and simple arch given slightly different names, but
correct. Yeah.
But they're still basically that formation. So the first one up here on the screen is the whorl, which looks like a bullseye on this particular print that I put up. And that's sort of what I would call the perfect whorl. Wouldn't you call that a pretty perfect whorl?
It's pretty perfect. It's pretty
really just circular and even around.
Right in the middle.
Yeah. Right. And it doesn't necessarily always look like this.
No.
Sometimes they're elongated.
Yep.
And sometimes they look like they have a point on the bottom, but they've still got the circles going around. So like on a peacock's tail, they actually call that a peacock. Sometimes it looks like a yin yang in the middle where it's kind of an S that goes like 2 loops.
2 loops interconnecting.
Why do this?
Yeah, some look like that hook and some look like the yin yang symbol.
Right.
Or an S.
right?
Or
Or an S,
Stephanie. No.
right? But they still have the circles going around.
Yep.
It's still circular in nature. So the big thing you need to know about the world is that it's really circular in nature. So if there's any variation on circular, you can just dump it in under whirl for the simplest way to look at this. There's the fingerprints actually take quite a bit of study to get to know them and to really be able to start saying it's this or that. But we're just going with the simplest explanations here.
Yes, I'm still learning as we go.
Always.
Always.
I mean, for 30 years I've been doing this, and every once in a while I see something and I go, I've never seen anything that looks like that before.
What is that? Yeah.
Right.
Did you get it cut off? What happened? Are you alternating this?
Right. Do you have a scar on that?
Yeah.
Because and it's we should certainly not forget to mention how the fingerprints are coded in your DNA and you can't get rid of them.
Right.
I mean, you can try to
talk about that in a little bit about the how they are formed.
Okay, we'll talk about that when we have finished getting through the 4.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, so the next one is the loop. And the loop loops off to one side. It's always goes off to one side.
It's either an ulnar loop or that goes towards your finger, your pinky finger.
Right. Typically
or the loop that goes towards your thumb.
Most loops, the base of the loop loops away towards your pinky finger. That's the ulnar loop.
Most of them are ulnar loops.
Right.
Every once in a great while, you'll get a radial.
Right, which loops off towards your thumb. And I often see it most often on the index finger.
Yes, as do I.
And loops are the most common fingerprint
in the world.
You'll see more people that tend to have a lot of loops than anything else. The next one is the tenon arch. Actually, we'll talk about the 2 arches together because the arches basically are like little hillsides that go from one side of the finger to the other. The difference being the tenon arch.
Yeah.
Yes, like a mountain. Right. We got a mountain or a hillside.
Or rolling hills, yes.
Right, like rolling hills, right. But the tenon arch literally has what looks like a tent pole up the middle. And I think this is a really good example of a tenon arch.
That is a great example. Yep.
Yeah, I looked really hard through my examples.
Oh,
to find
should
it.
Just use mine.
And then, of course, the simple arch, which tends to be, a little less complicated. It doesn't have a whole lot going on. Every once in a while, you see a little bump in the bottom, but mostly they're pretty flat ridges, just moving from one side to the other. And that's a nice, clean one there.
Yeah.
So go ahead and do your little talk on how the fingerprints are formed.
Okay. Your fingerprints are formed 16 weeks. Is that correct?
Yeah, 16 weeks.
16 weeks into gestation. So you're in the womb, your mom's womb, and your fingerprints are formed at the same time as your brain and your nervous system. So they're all 3 formed at the same time. And this is your coding for what you're here to do in life. That's what we believe. We believe that is how we can tell what you are here for. Right.
So we talk about fingerprints as containing your life purpose script. And there's 3 parts. There's actually the life purpose, what is the most meaningful thing you came here to accomplish. Or be. Do or be.
Do or be.
The second one is the thing you came to learn. And you need to learn that in order to do or be the thing you came to do or be. And the third piece, which we're going to talk about in more detail in this video, is when we learned it from the International Institute of Hand Analysis, they call it the school you're studying in at Earth University.
Yes.
You can also think of it as the realm of experience you need in order to get to be or do what you came to be or do. It's how you gain the experience you need to get past your challenge and to become the best version of you. And I like to talk about the fingerprints. They're the hardwired part. Like Stephanie was saying, they're getting formed at the same time as the critical part of your brain. So when you think about nature versus nurture, the fingerprints are nature, unchangeable, hardwired in. Whereas the lines in your hands, which change all during your life and reflect the changes that you make in belief systems or habits,
thought processes,
right? Experience, that's nurture. So nature versus nurture, we're talking about nature today. Hardwired nature, your innate, who you are. So just one last thing about the lesson. Even though your fingerprints never change your whole life, and that means your lesson never changes your whole life, it does not mean you are just have to live with that challenge and put up with it.
Sure feels like it.
But okay, that's
because it shows up in many different forms when you're not living your true purpose.
Well, all your life, you deal with it in different instances, in different forms all your life. But don't think of it as just like always hitting yourself in, like banging your head against the wall. Like, oh God, here comes my challenge again. You do get to be better at it. That's the point. You get to be better at it.
You learn how to maneuver through it.
Right. But so you have to think of it as an upward spiral. And I like to say you learn a little bit, you plateau for a while, you practice how good you got at that aspect of the challenge, you meet the challenge in a certain way, in a certain circumstance, at a certain point in your life, and you go, okay, now I'm practicing how to get better at this. And then at some point, the universe sends you a new version of it, and you get to take it up to the next level.
Here you go.
So think of
round two.
Round two. So yes, it may be the same essential problem at the heart of it, or challenge at the heart of it, but you're learning at a different level. So it is progress.
You leveled up.
Right. It's progress. You're not just, like I said, banging your head against the wall with the same thing over and over and over. At least if you're doing the work.
Right. I was just going to say sometimes automatic. It can happen. Yes, it can.
Right. You can keep banging your head against the wall because you're ignoring it and not doing the work.
Exactly.
It's about doing the work. It's always about doing the work. So we're going to talk about the 4 schools of experience at Earth University that show up with the 4 different fingerprints. So the 4 schools, here we are. They are service. And service is associated with the world. I like to say in terms of, I also like to think about them in terms of the elements, right? So service is fire. It's
getting things done.
It's doing, yeah.
Getting it done, yeah.
Right. Then there's love. Love is water.
Emotions, relationships.
Right. It's water. And then wisdom. Love is feeling. So you've got doing, feeling, wisdom. That's thinking.
Thinking.
That's learning. It's communicating. It's brainstorming.
Air sign.
It's air. It's air. And then you've got peace, which is earth. And that is being. Just think about the
being
earth.
Here in the moment.
Stillness, right? The earth is still. Nature. Grounding. I always think about it as like being the mountain. And it's about being in the present. Be here now. Nothing exists but this present moment.
This moment in time.
Right. So that's peace.
Sometimes that's a hard practice to remember.
Oh my God, I think that's the hardest one, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
I don't, it's not mine, but.
As my daughter looks at me through this, be in this moment right now.
Is she in the school of peace?
She's in the school of love.
So am I.
Yes. I'm in the school of service. And boy, am I feeling that this week.
Okay. All right. So we're going to look at some sets of fingerprints and just kind of, these are just random sets of fingerprints. We're going to talk about how they might show up. So if you were looking at these grids that I made, you'd be looking at the thumb on the side that's closest to us over here. On, I guess when you're looking at your screen, it's on the left side. We read left to right. So left to right would be thumb, index, I should have put that on the slide, shouldn't I?
That's okay.
It's too late now.
Middle finger.
It's all the way
ring
to the little pinky finger on the right, and the right hand on top, left hand on bottom. And that's when Stephanie
This
or
way.
I,
There.
right, when we take our fingerprints from a person, we make a grid like this, or we look at, if we're doing the whole hand, we would make a grid like this and label them, obviously, which we didn't do for the slide.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just how we would determine do the reading for the person in to tell what life purpose, life lesson, and what school. So this person, for the purpose of this slideshow, I made the fingerprints associated with the school blue because that's what the slideshow let me do. Mm-hmm. Was that or like some really weird hot pink?
Oh, no.
Nah.
The blue is good.
Yeah, the blue is good. Kind of goes with our colors. And so the 4 blue fingerprints here are whorls. And if you don't know how good you can see that on your screen, I did my best with Photoshop to make them clear. And so we've got 4 whorls here. This person is in the School of Service. So their job in the School of Service is to be of service, not because of the outcome, but for the pure joy of doing for others. And what do we say is the challenge in the School of Service?
Oh, there's sacrifice and servitude.
Right, yes.
Servitude. Been there all week.
Servitude.
Yes.
Servitude is when you just do too much.
For others.
Too
much for others and not enough for yourself. Not enough for just relaxing and taking a moment.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. If you're not feeling joy about it, it's a good chance it feels like servitude.
Yes.
And, service, if you're in the school service, one of the things you're here to learn is that no is a complete sentence. Right?
You can say no. Yeah.
Yeah. People might ask you, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me?
I could, but I don't feel like doing that.
Right. Or the other thing is that you don't keep volunteering to do more things for other people because you know you can do it.
That's me right here, this girl. I could do that. No problem.
Or
I can do that.
because you think you can do it better than somebody else. Your job isn't to just go up to somebody and take stuff out of their hands and do it. Speaking of which, that reminds me of my first jewelry making teacher. Oh. My first jewelry making teacher, I was learning how to solder with the torch. And I'd be up there trying to learn how to solder. And she would run up and take the torch out of my hand and then do it for me. And I knew I was never going to learn how to do it if she kept doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't only do it to me. She did it to everybody in the class.
If it was just you, then it would have been weird.
Yes. No, she did it to everybody. So yes, she maybe thought she was doing a service for everybody by getting their piece soldered, but nobody ever learned how to solder that way.
Yeah.
So that's kind of an example. But
yeah,
usually it's
example.
not. Yeah. Usually it's also about things like, I don't know.
I know. How about your daughters are supposed to have chores and you do them for them instead? Because you're just sick and tired of looking at all the stuff that needs to be done.
Is that what happens in your house?
Every week. It's the thing. Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. So you don't want to end up out of balance in the school service because you'll end up in servitude.
Right.
You also don't want to do service for people because you expect them to do something back for you.
Exactly. Yep.
That's
it's out
another
of the
bad way to do it.
Your heart. You're doing it because you want to do it, not because you feel bad for somebody else or you want something in return.
Right. Right. So like I remember one of the examples Richard used when I was learning was the guy who carries the girl's books for her because he expects that if he does that, she'll give him a date.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So
yes, exactly.
So service purely for the joy of doing for others and service to yourself first so that you can fill your cup and have enough energy to give.
Yes. So, and when you do it right, the service comes back to.
It comes back to you.
Yes.
Right. It comes back to you. So next one is love. The loop fingerprint is associated with the school of love. And that's mine, so I get to do all the giggling now. I got to tell you, everybody I talk to in the school of love goes like rats when I tell them what it means.
And I'm like, yeah, you guys get to deal with that. And I don't.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, God, I don't really want to do that. So the school of love is all about becoming emotionally authentic. It's not about. Why are you laughing?
Emotionally authentic. I'm being emotionally authentic here. I'm sorry.
We're so giggly today. This is bad.
Oh,
okay, so it's not necessarily about it. There is an element of being in the school of love about building relationships, but mostly it's you build relationships by being emotionally authentic. So what does that mean? That means being willing to feel all the feels, and when you're feeling them, to express them in the world, whether that's crying, yelling.
My favorite is when we're mad, we go, oh, I'm mad. It kind of lightens the mood, but you're still like, I'm mad. But
I don't do that.
it's from a kid show, and I can't remember which character said that, but they were like, oh, I'm mad.
Okay. Well, you need to the point is to express those feels, right? Feel them and then express them, but not just express them. There's particulars about how you're supposed to express them. Right. You're supposed to express them at the moment you feel them, not saving them for later. Completely. So not only expressing part of it, but holding part of it back. Am I missing anything? And
vulnerability.
And to not give a rat's what anybody else thinks about it as you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So not caring whether other people like that you're having emotions or not. And that's the part that always gets people when I'm doing these readings. They always go, I was with you up to that point.
I've had people that are in the school of of love, and I've been in the moment and having my just like having my moment because I'm there, and they're like, wow, you're so passionate. Like, you're supposed to be in this lifetime.
Well, I have 7 or 8 of these fingerprints. 8. And kind of like this hand that's up here. This is not my hand, but it's similar to my script here. And I got to tell you, it's been hard for me to not always cry all the time. I mean, put a sad movie in front of me. It's like the waterworks turn on and I can't turn them off.
Yeah.
And so it took me a really long time to not be embarrassed. And even sometimes to this day, like I was on a group coaching call with a bunch of people, and it was like the first one, and I'd never met most of these people before. And it was like a 4-hour thing, and literally like 20 minutes in, the waterworks started, and I couldn't stop them. And I was just trying to hide on Zoom. And it got so bad that I had snot running down my nose. Finally had to like turn the camera off. But that's School of Love. Mm-hmm. At least that's my version of School of Love. Yeah. Boy, that was very revealing. Talk about being vulnerable.
That was.
Because you know why? I've actually always been kind of good at the last part, that not giving a rat's what.
Mm-hmm.
It's the other parts that I wasn't always good at.
It's fine. I cry all the time at movies, weddings.
Right.
Little babies.
Right.
Puppies.
Puppies. Yeah. I know, puppies. So in the School of Love, what happens if you aren't expressing yourself is you can end up numb.
Yeah.
Numb.
By the cold-hearted woman.
Or depressed.
or depressed.
Those are the out of balance pieces, and neither of those is very good. And remember, we said loops are the most common fingerprint. So think about how many people are really good at expressing emotions. A lot of them probably have these loops that way.
Yeah, there you go. I know it's opposite.
That way. So a lot of them probably have a lot of these loops, and yet how many of your friends really like, just let loose with the tears or with the passions or with the anger, and then are able to just let it go? Because that's the next piece, is after you get it out, just letting it go. And actually, the better you get at doing the school of love according to the parameters we described, actually the easier it does get to just let it go. Yep. Which is, I think, the step beyond not giving a rat's what.
Yep, exactly.
I needed a picture of a rat's behind for this slideshow. Next time we do this one, I'm going to get one of those and flash it up here for school of. Okay, let's move on to the school of wisdom. And that's the tenet arches. And so in this group of fingerprints, we have 3 tenet arches on these fingers. Right?
Yes.
Right? So this person, school of wisdom. So in the school of wisdom, the person tends to have a lot of ideas, brainstorms, spends a lot of time in the head. They are, they probably, if you could see how much was going on up there, their heads would probably be 3 times the size they really are. And so the job of the person in the school of wisdom is to learn to take all of those brilliant ideas, thoughts, philosophies, whatever's going on up there, and translate it into reality in the world. So to take the risk of moving forward on one of the ideas. The danger in the school of wisdom is that the person thinks these things over and over and over so much in their head that to them it's a reality already, even though they've never made a single attempt at turning whatever, like the invention they're thinking about, into something real. What else would you say about the school of wisdom?
Well, when you gain wisdom by being foolish. So
yes.
A little bit of you're not foolproof. You have to fight those fights, those little lessons of being, that was the wrong thing to do. Oops.
Right.
But that's how you win your successes.
Right. Getting past fears of failure.
Fears of failure. Yep.
Fear of failure is what keeps things up in the head. And
it's great right here.
Right.
But if I actually do it, people will see it and I might fail.
Right. Fears of rejection.
Yep. Yeah.
They'll think I'm a little bit like egg-headed and weird.
Right. Like interested in fingerprints or something.
Right. A geek. Oh my God, a geek. Right.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. All right. Let's then go on to the last one. The simple arch, school of peace. School of peace. We talk about finding peace versus panic. This is the school that has to do with, like I mentioned earlier on in the video, about being in the present moment, not spending time worrying about what's going to happen next, like coming up with 50 million scenarios of what might possibly happen, or reliving in your mind over and over and over again something that already happened. Those are difficulties with the school of peace.
The broken record.
The broken record. The other thing that happens in the school of peace is that people feel overwhelmed. They have time management issues. They are usually, okay, so should we tell the story of Mr. Sticks and Plates?
Sure.
So one of the archetypes that our teacher, Richard Unger, founder of this system, talked about was Mr. Sticks and Plates. And if you are old enough to remember vaudeville, or if you've ever seen a movie or a cartoon or a TV show that features like a variety show, or you've been to some kind of weird circus, you might see
Got Talent.
Oh,
I don't know. It might be on there. You never know.
You never know. But there would be this long table with a guy, just somebody who's doing tricks, and he's got a stick and he's spinning a dish on top. And then he runs down to the other end of the table and spins the dish. And he runs down to the other end of the table and spins the dish. And he's got all these sticks going with the plates spinning on top. And the trick is that he keeps them all going. And it's this very long table and he never misses. None of them come crashing to the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So the archetype of that it describes an out of balance version of the School of Peace is someone who's always got so many things going on that they never get to take a breath and rest.
So busy, so busy.
So busy.
I got to keep myself busy. Otherwise, I might have to think of what's happening right now.
Right. Overwhelm. Overwhelm.
Yeah.
Right. Because what happens when you're that busy, you don't have to be with yourself.
Exactly.
Right. Because when everything's quiet, you have to be with yourself. And your fears might come in. Or the what ifs will start showing up.
What ifs? What if this happened? What if I made that choice?
Right. He also used to talk about the story of Chicken Little. The sky is falling. The sky is falling.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that tendency to always be the pessimist.
Right.
When you're out of balance in the School of Peace.
Yeah.
So the opposite thing that happens in the School of Peace is you just simply go numb. So you don't have to deal with any of it.
Or argumentative. Push it back on somebody else. You know?
The victim.
Yeah. Yep. It's not my fault. I didn't do that.
Right.
I wasn't aware that was the situation.
Right. So if you're here learning to get experiences in the School of Peace, you are here to learn, like I said, to be in the moment. This is the now. The now is all that you have.
Mm-hmm.
To be okay, knowing everything is going to be okay. You're here. Everything is fine. You're breathing. Everything is fine. Everything is peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to feel like you have to get up and handle every little crisis. Time works out for you. You're not always behind. Everything, you just be able to take that nice breath.
And be grounded.
And be grounded and be here.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being. And when people get really good at being in the School of Peace, they're the ones that can handle systems or be organized. That's the learning part.
You think they would be like one of the really good 911 operators?
I don't know. That could be.
Sorry, that just flashed in my brain. Like,
well, it could be.
They're calm. They can handle the situation, and they can take all of the pertinent information down and transfer it to somebody else.
Well, yeah, once they learn to handle their own lives and kind of like everything kind of working,
mm-hmm.
they could be the people who help other people do that.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, we talked about the 4 basic fingerprint types, the whorl, the loop, the tended arch, and the simple arch, which some schools of thought lump together as 2 different types of arches, but just as an arch.
Mm-hmm.
And, these are basic fingerprints. And we gave you that nice slide. See if I can go back there. Slide 2. There it is. Let's go back to that slide. There we are with the 4 types. But if you're looking at your own fingerprints and you see something that doesn't look like any one of these, you're not crazy. There are variations on these,
right?
Which we were talking about in the early part of this video, saying that it takes a while to learn to identify. Mm-hmm. Practice. It's just practice, like anything else. And then there are these fingerprints that defy classification. Want to talk about those?
Those lovely weird suckers.
Right.
I call them weird suckers.
Yes.
What is this?
Yes. You go, God, that doesn't look like any of them.
Yeah, it could be a combination. It could be, this is nature, remember? Nature takes on its own form. So
right. And they say that the fingerprints, when they're in the womb, part of it is genetic.
Mm-hmm.
And so
part of it is time.
Right. Part of it is how your hands are scrunched up when you're a little tiny fetus. So, environment,
mm-hmm.
If you're kind of, anyway, if it's one's under your armpit or something, you could mash it up. And then there's some parts we don't know about what makes the ridge patterns become the ridge patterns that they are.
I was reading an article about that, and they were saying that we all start out with arches and they move from tended arch to loop to whirl. They have to go through those specific things in order to make that whirl.
That's pretty cool. That's
Yeah.
kind of like everybody starting out as a female.
Exactly. Yeah. I have that article. I just found it too.
Oh,
It was,
yeah. Cool.
it was in a science and health magazine about the brain
Oh,
and how it's developed.
Yes,
it's
I love
pretty
reading
cool.
that stuff.
Yeah.
Fingerprint geeks. We're geeks.
Totally.
We
I'm
are
going to
geeks.
start going back to the brain pretty soon and see what how they combine together, because that just fascinates me, how it's all connected.
Right. Yes. Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
So the other thing we were going to mention about the weird suckers that don't fit in here, sometimes you have a fingerprint that looks like it's all of them.
Yes.
Like it's part whorl, it's part loop, it's part tendon arch. It just looks like this bizarre thing. And we call that the gamut. And sometimes, as you were reminding me earlier, they even look like a G.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't add any pictures of that here today because it gets complicated. It is something that requires a lot of practice. When we did our trainings, we were each told we had to go out and read 100 pairs of hands.
The first time.
Yes. When we went through the first training, because there's multiple trainings.
Yep.
Multiple levels of training.
Intensive. Yeah. I did another intensive and we had to do 500 trainings or 500 readings. And then the last one was 1,000 readings. So
yes. So
I'm
you
way
have to
over
read
1,000.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, you have to read at least 1,000 to be a professional.
To really
analyst.
be proficient
Mm-hmm.
at and I'm sure like people who are in fingerprint labs who are doing forensics have a similar kind of requirement about how many they have to look at before they are really considered proficient.
Right.
So, it's not like we're trying to discourage you, because for the most part, your fingerprints are going to look like one of those 4 we gave you.
Right.
And it's going to be fairly obvious. Most of them do. But it is fun. And we are, like I said, we are fingerprint geeks.
Mm-hmm. Love them.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So anything else we want to say about fingerprints before we sign off?
We have a whole lot of things to talk about with fingerprints, but we're just giving you the basics.
Oh, I remember what else I was going to say. Sometimes you can have a fingerprint pattern on the palm of your hand.
Like here, or here,
right,
or here,
right,
or anywhere on these lines here.
Not everybody does.
Or in here.
Right.
I've seen those.
Yeah. So every once in a while you can get a fingerprint pattern. And we have shown some of those in some of our other videos.
Yep.
And I can't remember which ones off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I think the one on sensitivity, we talked about the moon whirl.
The moon whirl.
Right. Yeah. So our video on sensitivity talks about the moon whirl, and we do have an image up there that shows the whirl on the mound in the moon, which is your heel of your palm there. Pretty cool. Those are rare, and beautiful when you see them. Just gorgeous.
And I'm always amazed when I hear that it's so rare, because I see many of them.
Well, many is a relative term.
Right, because I have only seen, how many people in my lifetime that I'll be able to see. Not the world, not 8 billion people.
Right. And sometimes as a hand reader, you get a lot of people come to you with the same thing, even though it's rare. Like, for instance, the simian crease, which we also have a video on the simian crease, which is a single crease across your palm here instead of a headline and a heart line. The average is what, like 2% of the population?
Yeah.
And I know in my collection of handprints, I have way more than 2% of my handprints have simian crease. And many of them on both hands. So I have a higher percentage than the average population, but that's because as soon as I started reading people with simian creases, suddenly like they would meet somebody else with one and go, "You got to go talk to her."
Yep.
So I was being sent people with simian creases like crazy.
And they are the most curious ones.
Yeah. Yes. And interesting to talk to.
Yes. Very interesting to talk to.
Yes. Interesting to read for.
Yeah.
So, All right, so I think that's going to wrap it up for today. I'm going to just remind you about our Facebook group, Hand Readers Guild Forum. We do stream these videos there, and the group is also filled with lots of fun diagrams of other things that we've talked about and taught about. And we also have a Facebook page with the same name, Hand Readers Guild. And then we have our YouTube channel. If you enjoy these videos, we hope you'll subscribe. We tend to do them every Sunday live. We don't always do them every week, and we don't always do them at the same time, but we generally try. You know, sometimes life gets in the way.
Hey, we're people. We have lives.
I know.
For reals.
Yes, but we are still, I mean, we've got more than a dozen videos up at this point. So
yeah, I think what's number 14?
I think this is 14.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they're lots of fun, and we hope you'll go and take a look.
Yep.
And if you have any requests for anything about hands you want us to talk about, leave them in the comments, and we'll definitely check them out.
Yes.
So until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.